I recommend that you work to get a 3 to 6 month cash cushion if you can. Now, here's what I will tell you is that most businesses can't do that right away. I mean, to be honest with you, like my business, even as much as I give that advice, I couldn't do it right away. And it's something that we had to figure out. All right, how do we develop a strategy to build up to this 3-month to 6-month lead time? You know, it is never fun having to have this type of conversation with a law firm owner. And unfortunately, I have to have the conversation a few times a year, and it could have been avoided. And so here's the conversation that I end up having to have is that the law firm owner brings me this great opportunity that they have, whether it's hiring the right perfect employee or whether it is making a strategic investment in their firm, to being able to jump on an opportunity. And then sometimes it's being able to make an investment outside of their firm that could really bring in some really good residual income. And the conversation that we end up having to have is like, man, that is a great idea. That would be phenomenal. It would really help take either your firm or your financial situation. It could help it take it to the next level. But here's the thing. You are not in a financial position to be able to do that. And as much as it pains me to have that conversation, I know that I have to because I'm looking at some of the trends and some of the habits that they've had financially and things that they just didn't put in place, which now puts them in a position to where it's like, hey, if you try to make that move now, although it could turn out great, and the likelihood is that it would turn out great, but you are not prepared to handle the risk because this exposes you way too much financially that if in the chance this doesn't work out exactly how we've mapped it out, it is not going to go well for you as a business owner or even personally at all. And here is what we always find in those uncomfortable conversations is we find that, hey, there were some decisions that were made in the past that didn't put the firm or that business owner in the best position possible. And I'm like, some of those decisions probably could have been avoided. And I would say to spare you the long story of a long list of what some of those decisions were, the biggest one comes down to is having cash reserves. And I know this is not an easy thing to develop and it's not an easy thing to work on, but it is essential for business owners and law firm owners to really think about how do I develop a cash reserve? And when I say a cash reserve, meaning you have enough cash that is in your operating account, enough cash to step in, to fill in if things don't go exactly as planned. Because what I often notice is many firms tend to operate from kind of on a 2-week schedule, meaning like, hey, we have enough money to get us through the next 2 weeks, or we have enough money to get us through the next week. And if these things don't happen in the way we expect them to happen, then, hey, we're going to run into financial trouble. Well, when you are trying to make a strategic decision, like, hey, a great opportunity comes up, and you are trying to debate like, hey, should we make the investment in that great opportunity? Well, if you only have 1 week's worth of cash on hand, then I would say it's probably very risky because what if you invest in that opportunity and that opportunity takes longer to actually see the benefits start coming in? Well, if you only have 1 week of cash on hand, you really don't have the cushion to be able to handle that kind of risk. And so here's what I recommend for businesses is I recommend that you work to get a 3 to 6 month cash cushion if you can. Now, here's what I will tell you is that most businesses can't do that right away. I mean, to be honest with you, like my business, even as much as I give that advice, I couldn't do it right away. And it's something that we had to figure out. All right, how do we develop a strategy to build up to this 3-month to 6-month lead time? And one of the things that we started doing first is we said, all right, first we need to do the math and let's figure out what is that number. And the way we looked at it, we said, okay, what are all of our normal expenses that we pay in a month? And we looked at that and we said, all right, if our normal expenses is X, and for very simple math, I'm just gonna say is, let's say if the normal expenses were $10,000 a month. And I know that's a low number for many law firm owners, or some maybe in that early stage, growth stage, and that may be where your number is. But I'm just using that number for simple math because I'm doing it off the top of my head while I'm recording. And so let's say if your monthly expenses are $10,000, which means, hey, every month we need about $10,000 that are going to go out the door to cover our expenses. Now, one of the things that we want to look at is say, okay, all right, let's calculate what would 3 months of cushion look like, or what would 6 months. 3 months would be the $10,000 times 3, so $30,000 in the bank. And then when you look at 6 months, it's having $60,000 in the bank. So if we had $30,000 or $30,000 to $60,000 in the bank on reserve, meaning if something does not go as planned, we don't have to sweat it. We don't have to worry. We have the cushion that could step in to help us get through this, downward swing or whatever. And what I will say is, you may be hearing those numbers and you may be looking at your expenses saying, hey, well, our monthly expenses are $100,000 a month. And that means we need $300,000 to $600,000, cash available in case something happens. What I will say is that could be a scary number for a lot of businesses. So here's the way that I would think about it is, if you know what your 3 to 6 month target is, the next step we have to ask ourselves is, where are we actually at today? So let's say if your expenses are $10,000 a month and you need to get to $30,000, and let's say you only have $5,000 in the bank right now. Well, what I would say is, all right, we need to set up a plan to continually grow that reserve gradually until we get to the point where you do have a substantial cushion in there. And so one of the things that you may look at is, hey, going back to the video we did last week on cutting non-essential expenses, I think you should definitely look at that video, really download the resource we talked about last week, because it'll help you find where are some cost opportunities we can cut back on. Because if we can cut some of those non-necessary costs, we can actually add more and more to the cushion. And the way that I would start to think about it is, let's say if your monthly expenses are $10,000, that means probably if they're 4 weeks in a month, then you're spending roughly $2,500 a week is what you're spending. Well, if you only have $5,000 in the bank, that means you only have 2 weeks worth of expenses on hand. And so the next thing I would say is, what do we need to do to get 3 weeks of expenses on hand? And that means adding another $2,500 to your reserve account. And if you break it down that way to say, hey, how do we just add one more week? How do we add one more week? How do we go from 2 weeks to 3 weeks? And then how do we go from 3 weeks to 4 weeks? And then from 4 weeks to 5 weeks? And what you will notice is, when you set a very focused strategy like that, over time, what you will notice is that your business will start to actually see more excess profit to where you can continue adding to that cushion. Because what I will tell you is, although I would say 3 to 6 months should be the target you're aiming for, once you start to get to having at least 2 months worth of expenses on hand, what I will tell you is the burden you feel about finances will start to go down and down and down. And what you will realize is, as that financial burden goes down, it's almost like magic. You will start to think more clearly and more strategically about your business. And I will say, for every firm that we have worked with, when they get to about having 2 months worth on hand, the ideas that they get to be able to close the gap to go from 2 months to 3 months, they tend to just flood in, and they get more great ideas, more opportunities seem to come up, and the momentum that they're on actually takes them to that 3 to 6 months of reserve on hand. So then when a decision comes up about, hey, we had a great attorney that came and they want this salary. We don't actually have the work right this moment, but we can make a strategic move because they're the right cultural fit. They're the right professional fit. I mean, they are right for this firm, and we could really grow the firm if we had them on the team. And if you already have 3 to 6 months of cash reserve on hand, you can make that decision confidently, and you don't have to worry as much. And what I will say is, the firms that I've seen do this end up setting themselves up for great success. Now, here's the thing that many people may be asking the question of, well, does the cash need to be sitting in just a standard bank account? Because, hey, we don't make that much money on interest, or should we invest it in something? I would say is, if you have the excess cash, like if you have more than 1 month's worth of cash that's sitting in the bank and you want to decide to invest it in something or put it in an investment, I think that could be a great idea. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that it is an investment that can actually be converted back into cash on, I'd say, within 30 days, because if you end up needing that excess cash, you need to be able to sell that investment. So I would not pick something that will take you, let's say, 6 months or 7 months to then sell and then convert back into cash. You want to look at something that is a short-term investment to where you can get higher interest, but you still have access to the cash in a short period of time if you need it. Now, I know that this conversation was probably a bit more high numbers and a little more technical calculations as you start to think about this. So what my recommendation to you is to go back and listen to this video multiple times. And I would say also what you can do is send this video to your bookkeeper or to your CFO and ask your CFO, like, hey, watch this short video and I want you to help me develop a strategy to do what this video talks about. And if you don't have a bookkeeper or a CFO, hey, the TL Turner Group is absolutely excited to be able to help you because we're taking on new clients. Now, at the moment, we're only taking on 4 new clients a month. So if you're interested in working with a great bookkeeper, CFO that can really help you move towards these targets, go to our website, www.tlturnergroup.com, and book a discovery call, because right now we only have a capacity to take on 4 new law firm clients a month. And if you're interested in getting our help, please go to the website and book a discovery call today. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.